The desert wind blew low across the mesas, carrying dust and memory in its breath. The sky was a deep orange wound bleeding into dusk when the cowboy came riding out of the west, his body bent like a broken fence post, his horse staggering beneath him. He'd been shot twice, once in the shoulder, once in the side, and the trail behind him was a thin red thread that the coyotes would soon find. His name was Eli Boone, and he'd been a man of violence long before the bullets found him. He'd ridden with bounty hunters, gamblers, and soldiers who'd sold their guns to whoever would pay for them. He wasn't bad by his own reckoning, but he'd done bad things, and sometimes that was enough to make a man deserve his fate. By the time he reached the canyon, his horse gave out. Eli slid from the saddle, hit the sand, and didn't get up. He thought of the town he'd left behind, Tombstone, or Tucson, or maybe nowhere worth naming, and then he thought of nothing at all. When he woke, it was to the sound of water dripping and the smell of smoke. His wounds had been cleaned and packed with herbs that stung worse than the bullets. A low fire burned near him, and across from it sat a woman watching him with eyes like flint struck from stone. She was Apache. Her hair was long and black, her face painted in ash and ochre. She wore no sign of fear, no sign of pity, and when she spoke, her voice was calm and cold. "You're not dead," she said. Yet, Eli tried to speak, but his throat was raw. "You patch up every dying man you find. Only the ones the desert hasn't claimed yet," she said. "The others I leave for the buzzards." He tried to sit up and winced when pain flared down his side. "You should have left me too." The woman didn't answer. She poured water into a cup made of clay and handed it to him. Her hands were strong, the hands of someone who knew how to hunt, build, and survive when the world offered no kindness. When he finished drinking, he asked her name. "I am Nayland," she said. "My people called me Healer. But my people are gone." Eli looked around the canyon, at the narrow mouth that kept the wind from howling through, at the small camp that looked like it had been there a long time. "You live here alone." "I live," she said simply. Days passed. Eli healed slow, and Nayland said little. She cooked for him, brought him water, changed his bandages with the same silence one gives to tending a dying fire. Sometimes, when the moon was full, she would leave and return hours later smelling of sage and smoke, carrying fresh meat or roots from the desert. He never asked what she did, and she never told him. When he was strong enough to walk again, he saddled what remained of his horse's gear and said he'd be moving on. Nayland didn't stop him. She just looked up from her fire and said, "The desert is wide. You won't live through it without a horse." "I'll find one," he said, though they both knew he wouldn't. The nearest settlement was 100 miles away, and he could barely stand. She studied him, her face unreadable. "You carry death with you," she said. "Not your own, but others. You think if you keep riding, you can leave it behind. You can't." He frowned. "You talk like you know me." "I know your kind," she said. "Men who bring fire. Men who take what is not theirs. Men who think the earth forgets." Eli's temper flared, but he held it down. He'd killed for less, once. Now he was too tired. "You're not wrong," he said. "But I'm not here to make war." "No," she said softly. "You're here to die." He looked at her, then really looked. There was a sadness in her eyes, deep and old, like the bones of the canyon itself. He realized she had seen too many die. Maybe that was why she kept him alive. Not out of mercy, but defiance. That night, a storm came rolling in from the south. The air smelled of rain, and lightning cracked across the plains. Nayland stood at the mouth of the canyon, watching the sky with her arms folded. Eli limped to her side. You waiting for someone? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, long ago, before the soldiers came, before they built their towns and burned our camps, I had a husband. He went to fight them. He never came back. I waited through one storm, then another, and another. I stopped counting after the 20th. I'm sorry, Eli said, though the words felt useless. She turned to him. Don't be. The desert takes who it wants. But you it didn't take. So I wonder why. Maybe it's not done punishing me yet. Maybe, she said. Then, after a moment, or maybe it wants you to do something before it lets you go. The storm broke open, and rain came hard, drumming against the rocks. They took shelter by the fire, the sound of thunder echoing through the canyon like the voice of old gods. When morning came, the world smelled new again. Eli woke to find Nayland saddling her horse, a tall, gray mare with eyes as wild as the sky. Where you going? He asked. She looked at him over her shoulder. You said you wanted to find a town. I will take you halfway. You don't have to. No, she said. But I will. They rode in silence for hours. The land stretched endless before them, rolling dunes, twisted mesquite trees, the bones of old cattle whitening in the sun. By midday, they reached the edge of a dry riverbed, where vultures circled low. Eli saw them first, a group of riders coming fast from the east, their dust trail rising like smoke. He knew that kind of riding. Men chasing prey. Outlaws, he said. Or bounty hunters. Nayland's eyes narrowed. They follow you. He hesitated, then nodded. I reckon so. I left a man dead in Tucson. His brothers might not have liked that. Nayland didn't waste another word. She turned her horse and said, then we ride. They galloped hard through the desert, but Eli's wounds still ached, and soon the riders were close behind. Gunfire cracked through the air, spitting dust at their heels. One bullet tore through Eli's hat, another grazed Nayland's arm. They reached a rocky ridge where the land split open into a narrow ravine. Nayland pulled up her horse and shouted over the wind, down there. They slid into the ravine and dismounted, scrambling for cover among the stones. Eli drew his revolver, counted the bullets, 3 left, and waited. The outlaws came in fast, laughing and shouting. Nayland moved like a ghost through the rocks, her bow in hand, arrows flying swift and silent. 2 men fell before they even saw her. Eli fired at the third, hitting him square in the chest. But the 4th found him, knocked him hard to the ground, and the gun skittered away. They wrestled in the dust, the outlaw's knife flashing, but before it could find Eli's throat, a sharp crack split the air. Nayland stood behind the man, her bow drawn, her face fierce as fire. When it was done, the ravine fell silent again. The outlaws lay still, their blood mixing with the dust. Nayland stood breathing hard, her arm bleeding from the graze. Eli looked at her and said, you didn't have to save me. She smiled faintly. You think I would let you die alone? He wanted to laugh, but it came out as a cough. You should have let the desert have me. The desert doesn't want you, she said. Not yet. They buried the bodies under stones and rode until nightfall. The stars came out sharp and cold. Around the campfire, Eli watched Nayland tend to her wound. He said, when this is over, when we reach the town, what'll you do? I'll go back, she said. To my canyon. It's the only place that remembers me. You could come east, he said. There's land, work, maybe something better. Nayland looked at him a long time, then shook her head. You can't build something better on land taken from others. I have my home. The earth knows my name. He nodded. I guess that's fair. Silence fell between them again, but it was different now, warmer, almost peaceful. When the fire burned low, she stood and walked to her horse. The moon cast silver over her skin. Get on my horse, handsome cowboy, she said quietly. You'll need it more than I will. He frowned. You're not coming. I told you. My place is here. He tried to protest, but her look stopped him. It wasn't anger. It was final, the look of someone who'd already made peace with her ghosts. He mounted the mare. She placed a hand on his knee and said, when you reach the town, tell them the desert still lives. Tell them it remembers. He nodded, throat tight. I will. She stepped back, the wind lifting her hair like black fire. He rode away, and when he turned to look back, she was gone, swallowed by the endless red of dawn. Eli Boone reached the town 3 days later, half dead but alive. Folks asked where he'd come from, and he told them a story no one believed of an Apache woman who saved him, who fought death itself to keep him breathing. Years later, when they found his grave near the edge of the desert, they said he died with a smile on his face and a horse's bridle in his hand. And on that bridle, carved faint and almost lost to time, were 2 words. Fernalen.